Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And next time you need parts for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. Thanks.
In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the front hub on this 2000 Buick LeSabre. Pretty much the same as any 2000 to 2005 Buick LeSabre. And obviously we sell new hubs at 1AAuto.com. Tools you'll need are jack and jack stands, 34, 19, 15, and 13 millimeter sockets. You'll need ratchets and extensions, and you'll also need a breaker bar and possibly a pipe for some extra leverage on some of those bolts, and a large flat blade screwdriver, a hammer, and torque wrench.
On this LeSabre, you remove this center hubcap, just pull firmly. Okay, if you don't have the benefit of air tools, you'll want to use a 34 millimeter socket and a big breaker bar, probably with a pipe, and with your vehicle on the ground, loosen up this center nut. Okay, loosen up here first. You'll want to loosen your lug nuts with the wheel on the ground, then raise and support the vehicle, okay, and then remove the lug nuts and wheel the rest of the way.
Now fast forward here as I use a 19 millimeter socket with an impact wrench and remove the lug nuts and the wheel and tire, and then just turn the suspension so that I can get a good look at the brakes.
Okay, to get the brakes apart, first you're going to remove two 15 millimeter bolts here and here. Okay, you should be able to use a 15 millimeter socket with a ratchet. And these should come apart with some force, but they should come apart pretty easy.
Okay, and I'll speed it up here as I loosen the top one and take both those bolts out, and I'll show you them in a minute. The bolts are actually the items that the calipers slide on as well, so I'll show a little close up to you.
Okay, and these are slides. When you take them apart, you want to note their condition. These probably should be just cleaned up and put a little bit of grease onto them.
And we'll speed it up here again as I just finish removing the upper bolt out of the top.
Okay, take a large screwdriver, put it right in here, and pry out. And that actually forces the piston back into. That actually forces the piston back into the caliper a little bit.
Okay, so you can see I use the screwdriver, pry out on the caliper a little bit. That loosens it up enough so I can get the caliper up and off, and then I just kind of hang it up on the strut. And I'll show you that right there.
Now your brake pads really easily just kind of pry out. Remove these two bolts here. I'm using my socket again and a ratchet. Use a breaker bar or a piece of pipe. Okay, a piece of pipe helps you get some extra leverage, and just push nice and firm until you start getting them loose.
Fast forward here as I use the ratchet and pipe to loosen up the top one, and then take both of the bolts out.
Now your rotor comes right off.
Here I'm applying some penetrating oil to the center hub nut, as well as the three nuts that hold the hub to the steering knuckle. Here I'm removing that nut with an impact wrench. Again, if you don't have air tools, you'll want to loosen up this nut when your tire is still on and the vehicle is on the ground.
Now you want to make sure that your axle is free from your hub. You're going to give it one good hit with a hammer. You don't want to beat on it continuously with the hammer because you could damage your CV joints. But one good hit, and just watch the axle in relation to the hub. If it moves, then your axle is free and it's no problem. So just give it a good wrap and just watch, like I said, the axle in relation to the hub. Okay, and it moved, so it's nice and free. I can actually move it just with my thumb.
Now 3 bolts hold the hub to the steering knuckle. You can see one down there and one up in there.
Okay, and generally you're going to want to use 3/8 drive tools because they're a little narrower and they can get in here better. So there's the bolt here, there's one down here, and then over on the other side there is a bolt right down in here. Okay, this is your ABS lead. You want to use a screwdriver, pry this clip away, pull that off, and then just push up on this clip here and disconnect it.
Okay, going to fast forward here as I take and loosen up those 3 bolts, and you should be able to get them with a good size 3/8 ratchet. You want to just keep applying even pressure. Don't jerk the wrench or anything. Apply even pressure and they'll come loose. And what I'm doing is actually kind of turning the steering knuckle back and forth so I can easily get to all 3 of the bolts.
And once you get the hub to this point, you need to push. I'm kind of pushing in on with my thumb on the axle and then pulling the sensor wire out. You want to take this off and put it right there. New hub available at 1aauto.com. When you want to put it in there, you want the sensor kind of towards the rear, towards where it goes in, and this goes on so that this tab is in this position over here. Okay, so put it on, and again just kind of reach through with your thumb, push on the axle so that you can push your sensor connector through. Okay. Let's see, I got this a little tangled. Okay. Pull that connector through, put this bracket up and on. I'm going to get the hub on here, pull this connector, pull this backing plate to there. Kind of a matter of just getting the grooves all lined up and in. Tug on your ABS sensor a little bit, make sure it's through cleanly. Push that on, grab a bolt. This one's the easiest one, so put it through and start it into the hub.
Okay, I'm going to speed it up again as I start all 3 bolts in. You want to make sure you start them all in first. Then usually you kind of tighten up the rear one till it's snug, and then you tighten up the other 2 till they're snug, and then the last step of tightening them is to torque them.
Okay, make sure the lead's through correctly. Flip it right on to that bracket and then plug it in. Okay, I'm going to tighten these bolts to 60 foot-pounds, starting with this rear one. I'm going to reinstall this hub nut, just kind of preliminarily. Okay, rotor goes back on. Okay, before you put this Caliper bracket back on. Take a wire brush and make sure these are all nice and clean.
And in particular that you're cleaning the grooves where the brake pads sit and slide.
So this part goes between the rotor and the steering knuckle. Okay. And the bolt goes to the steering knuckle first, then into the caliper bracket. Start my lower one. I'll start my upper one.
And speed it up here as I just kind of preliminarily tighten those two bolts up.
And now we'll torque these to 80 foot-pounds. Okay, put it down, make sure your hose isn't twisted. You might want to pull these kind of grommets in a little bit. Okay, put your caliper down on. Make sure that those aren't bunched up. Here are my slides. I cleaned them up, put a little light coat of grease on them. The lower one came out with this sleeve, so I took that off, cleaned it all out, put a little bit of grease on the inside, on the outside of it. Okay, so put our brake pads back on. The back one's just kind of slides right in. This front one kind of push down in a little bit diagonally. Put it in. Our top one back in first. Start it a little bit. Now our bottom one.
And I'll fast forward again as I just kind of preliminarily tighten those bolts.
Okay, torque these to about 50 foot-pounds.
Okay, and apologize for the low volume. 50 foot-pounds is what you want to torque those to. Okay, speed up here as we put the wheel and tire back on, and then just start the lug nuts by hand and then tighten them preliminarily with the impact wrench.
Now you want to torque the center nut to 118 foot-pounds. Torque your lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds using a star pattern.
Okay, and we'll speed up the tape as we torque up the lug nuts.
And anytime you take the brakes apart, make sure that you pump your pedal a whole bunch of times until it gets firm, and then do test stops from 5 and 10 miles an hour. Make sure the brakes are working correctly before you road test your vehicle.
We hope this helps you out. Brought to you by www.oneauto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet. Please feel free to call us toll-free 888-844-3393. We're the company that's here for you on the internet and in person.